Thank you,
I can
sir.
move.
Okay, so this is your daily lead generation habit put to work by a system. So I wanted to share with you guys some basic points of lead generation. So when we're talking about lead generation, this is your daily habit that it's your proactive prospecting to drive your business. So what I'm talking about quite specifically is building time that within that time contains you sitting down and purposefully doing reach out to remind people that you're in real estate, to connect with the people that you're uniquely qualified to serve, and make sure that all of your leads are followed up with in a timely basis. This can contain outbound prospecting if you're doing warm calling, cold calling. This could be your database management. This could be your DTD2. This is what you're pouring into your business. So there's a couple of things. I'm going to lay it out first, and I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. So this is your one pager that you're going to get if you want it. And so what the time blocked lead generation plan looks like, it's taking it from lead generation or prospecting when you have the time to create the structure in your business so that you can do it consistently. Just making sure you guys can see my screen. You good?
Yes.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
all good.
So the very first step to creating your lead generation system is to brain dump before you block. So what this means is get everything out of your head that you'd want to do in a lead generation block. What it looks like for me started as just make sure my leads are followed up on, right? Make sure all my leads are followed up on. And it's evolved through the years that I've been doing this. I'm going to show you what mine looks like. So hopefully you can take some inspiration and apply it to your business. So get it all out of your head. If you had to design a perfect lead generation session, how long would it take? Where would it be in your day? Where would it be in your week? And how will you define a winning lead generation session? It's not just sitting down, and the win isn't just forcing yourself to do it. That might be what the win starts as, but it should evolve over time to say, when I invest my time in driving my business, I should have X return when I'm done. So creating that purposeful input versus output can be really helpful to frame not only when you're going to do it, but how you're going to rate the effectiveness of your time invested. Design the day you want to live. White space in your calendar means that you're running reactive. This is very true. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about in a moment. This is a high level. Book yourself at the time for your lead generation. Think about this. Think about the last time you went on a really important consultation, right? I'm going to go out a limb and bet that when you went to your listing consultation, you came prepared with an agenda. You knew full well how you were going to greet them at the door, where you're going to put your bag, how you're going to let them know what this time is going to contain for them, when you're going to present comparables and pricing strategy. You had an agenda. So I want you to think about this strategy the very same way. The most important appointment that you have with yourself every single day is your lead generation, because without it, you don't have a business. You haven't earned the right to practice real estate if you have no one to practice real estate with. So I want you to think about, not only are we going to block the time and space that you desire to do it, but you're going to write yourself an agenda of what the time must contain in order for you to feel connected to the work and know that you're doing purposeful work. When I started lead generating on a regular basis, here's what it looked like. I'd show up, I'd open my laptop, I wouldn't know what to do. I would check my text, I would scroll social media for opportunities. I would kind of like fart around a little bit in my database, and then I would get antsy because I felt like I wasn't doing anything, and I'd rotate the laundry, or I'd take a call from a friend, or I'd do literally anything else but my most purposeful work. And what I found is proactive planning counterbalances and counteracts that directionless, weird feeling. Like, I can't be the only one who's ever felt that. Am I alone in this? I hope not. So
Not alone.
creating your agenda in advance is really important. Also, when you author the plan, you're significantly more likely to show up and execute. You take away the decision fatigue of deciding in the moment what the most important work is, and you put that in a designated time and space where you're creating your agenda. Right size the goal to the time. Understanding how long it might take for you to complete your tasks. When I worked on this project for myself, I found that it was really helpful for me to take on the mindset of curiosity, meaning I wonder how long it takes for me to complete these. Not, I will complete 50 calls in 1 hour. No, I wanted to get my baseline of my natural cadence first. So I let the time and space kind of create its own form in that exploratory phase in my lead generation development to say, okay, I know that if I'm going to do the two, I'm calling my database, I'm having social care calls, I might be able to complete 4 to 5 in an hour because I'm having a forward conversation. Forward conversations take longer by design. Versus if I'm prospecting and I'm cold calling or warm calling, whatever, to be TCPA compliant, how many dials does it typically take for me, or how long, how many dials can I do in an hour? How many conversations can I have in an hour if I'm having prospecting LP mama conversation? So understanding what your natural cadence requires of your time is an important piece, and be curious when you're sussing out what your natural pattern is. And then protect your time. We're never going to delete a lead generation block. You're always going to replace it. So we don't erase, we replace. Okay. It's cheesy, but it's sticky and it works because if you're, oh, well, we've got a final walkthrough and the only time the person can do it is 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, then it's your responsibility as the business owner to put on your business owner hat to say, if I know that I can't delete this block, I have to replace it. Where else in this day can it go? And if not today, then when? And how am I going to double down? Because the reality is that when the exception to the rule becomes your consistent pattern, you delete the driver of your business. And that's a big problem, my friends, because if you're not driving the business stalls. So this is your basic reminder 6-point plan to make sure that your head's in the game of approaching your lead generation in the most strategic way. So from here, I want to show you, what does this actually look like in practice? Now, I'm not the poster child for perfect lead generation. However, I can show you what it looks like. Success leaves clues, and this is the clue that it would, if I was working with a coaching client, when I look at their calendar and I can see their approach like this, I know that there's been a lot of thought, effort, and pre-planning put into their day, and they're more likely to execute. And when they're executing, we go from getting you into momentum of doing it to now you're doing it. Let's look at the results. Let's measure the effectiveness of what you're doing so that you can get more juice from the squeeze. Okay. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to switch screens. Can you guys see my calendar?
Yep.
I'm assuming. Okay. If you couldn't, you let me know. So this might look like an 8 type psychotic approach to running your day. But I'm going to confess to you guys, I am a B-type individual with A-type goals, meaning without the structure of my day telling me and my planning telling me what to do and when, I can meander and waste time like a professional time waster. Because it doesn't pay my bills, I'm not going to do it that way. So this is how I structure my days. And if you don't like seeing all of this stuff, then don't. But the most important parts of my days are my lead generation blocks. So here's how I actually do this. I choose Sunday nights at 6:30. 6:30 Sunday nights, again, confession. I get a little bit of the Sunday scaries. Sunday scaries to me is the anxiety of, am I prepared for my week? And this helps me to calm the Sunday scaries, get it all out of my head, and know 10 toes down that I'm prepared for my week. That's why I choose Sunday nights. To me, it's more therapeutic than obligatory, and I like the way it feels when it's done. So Sundays, I plan my week. What that looks like is I'm going to plan my most important work first. For example, Monday lead generation, I've given myself an agenda. So if you open this up, you're going to see my focus on Mondays is my investor focus. I want to send out 5 off-market properties to my investor clients to see if I can get any bites. I'm going to create the business where there might have been a hole in my business. I'm going to write down here quite literally when I go into my agenda, I will color it lead generation so I can always track how much time I have invested in driving my business. For me, it's important that I see that I've not only planned it, but I've accounted for a significant amount of time. And then down here, I want to look at for sale by owners, offer an open house. Goal is to set one open house with a FSBO. I know at the end of my time invested, if I can hit my goal, I'm winning. It's not just showing up anymore. It's showing up to execute to a plan. Second, look at Facebook Marketplace, send off-market properties to potential buyers. Goal, set one tour. Call Joe L. Joe L is a guy that sometimes he's got opportunities, sometimes he doesn't. Again, this is my plan, not yours. You can borrow it, but get your own Joe L. Scour Facebook investor groups. Goal, set a coffee, make new friends, expand my influence, expand my reach. So when I show up, I've given myself 9 to 10:30. I believe that this time container is enough time for me to execute my plan. And then when I'm done, you'll see I've given myself a 5. What this means to me is I want to do a self-evaluation at the end of my time invested on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 is I blew it. I barely showed up. I took a phone call. I chitty-chatted with my mom or MK. I did literally almost anything else but the plan. And 5 is I showed up. I protected my time. I was purposeful in executing the plan, and I hit my goals. So when I look back at my days, you're going to see that I've given myself a number. Now, if you want to get really extra, instead, you could change from lead gen to, you can have lead gen yellow, lead gen red, lead gen green, so that I can see if I biffed it, like I didn't do it, I swing and a miss, I'm going to turn this red. So I've got a visual representation of today stunk, and I have to make it up in the next following lead generation blocks. What this actually looks like, because you're all using Google for Business in your KW suite, I can see in my lead generation, if I want to know how many hours did I actually invest in driving my business, 9.5 hours this week, as long as I protect my lead generation, practice, script, and role play blocks. To me, that's acceptable. If I'm doing anything less than 9 hours a week to drive my business as a solopreneur, I got to ask myself, what do I expect 2 months from now to look like? I better have some reserves in my savings account, because if I don't, my paychecks are probably going to look a little anemic, right? And because squirrel, I can't sit down and do the same things every day. That's one thing that's true about me. So how I've organized my time, and if you can relate, if sitting still makes you itchy, give yourself some variety. So then Tuesdays is going to contain my DTD2. I'm going to need more time to do that because I've got 36 people on my list. I know that I'm probably going to need to have some overflow time, because 2 hours is not enough time for me to reach out to 36 people unless I'm doing text messages. So I tell myself I'm going to invite them to my upcoming client event. I've got 36 people to call. My goal is to contact all 36 people. I'm going to give myself a rating at the end simply by clicking the pencil tool. And I'm going to go in there and let's say I earned a 3. Great. Then I can go into Wednesday. If I've got any overflow work that needs to show up, I'm going to probably add it here and see if I can move some things out. Wednesday, I show up to work. I've already got it planned. I'm going to hit my hots, my nurtures, my low motivation. I'm going to go into my CRM. I'm going to go into all of these buckets of people, and I'm going to make sure that my hot prospects, my goal is to contact once a week, my nurtures once a month, my low mo's once a quarter. I'm going to make sure that my people are always accounted for every single week, so no opportunity falls through the cracks. My goal is to clear all of my buckets 100%. And I'm going to tell myself what I'm going to say. So my buyers, I'm going to tell my buyer potentials, I'm going to tell them, this was December, the inventory is going to pick up before buyer competition. So let's get you out and running. What do we need to do to make it so? Grant money is available. How do we get you in front of the right people to see if you qualify for additional forgivable funds? Sellers, inventory builds in January, catch the first wave, and then get your punch list ready now. So I'm not wondering, what the heck am I supposed to say? I've got 2 different conversations for buyers and 2 different conversations for sellers, pre-planned and mapped. So I don't have to rely on myself in the moment to be creative to know what the heck I'm going to say. And then I've got my lead generate business to business. So create CMA for investor clients, get their portfolio plans for upcoming year. This might be reach out to your chamber friends. This might be connect with your vendor list. Who knows? But the way I've got it laid out, and then I do my coaching on Friday. So I've squeezed all of my lead generation into 4 days instead of 5 because I have to. So for me, this is how it works. And then I've also planned my script and role play, which I consider part of my lead generation. The better I am at the conversations that I have, the more likely I am to be able to prospect less people and create more opportunities for myself. So I know I'm script and role playing LP Mama, commission objections. The way I see it, you have 3 options. That's a Phil Jones framework. And then exactly what to say, continuing in his work. So I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm saying. I know who I'm calling. I know for how long. I know how I'm rating my intention versus my actual output. And then my days can move on from there. But this is where I'm intentionally driving my business to create opportunity for myself so that nothing ever falls through and I can spin all the plates effectively. That was quite the monologue. I'd like to open the last half for questions, comments, concerns to see how can you take these ideas and put them into action for yourself. So, anyone have any questions on that?
I'll make a comment that the level of structure here, right? For some of you, you may be looking at it and you know, just getting anxiety looking at this type of schedule, right? And there's extremes to this where on one extreme it's like show me your schedule, show me your calendar, and I can predict, the level of success based off that, right? And when you're looking at something like this, and those times are met, those time blocks are met, those objectives are hit, it goes hand in hand where we can pretty much be pretty confident to predict a high level of success, right? The opposite end of that spectrum with an empty calendar, let's just see what happens this week, right? It's dangerous to say that that person can't be successful, but you introduce a whole bunch of unnecessary risk to the equation, I guess is the way I think of it. So there may be, a happy median somewhere in between those
Mm-hmm.
two extremes, right? To find. But I think ultimately this topic of scheduling, time blocking, like, having the time available for your commitments. And then you took it further, to where it's like not just the time block itself, but what are we doing specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've been talking a lot lately is like if you don't know what you're going to say ahead of time going into, a lead generation time block, you very well may get to it and then stall out, right? Because you don't have that preparation and comfort and confidence that comes with that level of like, you know, I just have things to rattle off right now, and I'm able to make those calls, one by one by one, whether it be, cold calling and prospecting or significant or not significant, but meaningful touches to your sphere, to your database. So, this is the necessary evil, as some may look at it, right? But like a necessary conduit to success is some
Mm-hmm.
sort of level of this type of diligence towards your business to be able to have, the time available to do the things that you need to do.
And this, if you take everything under here and delete it, okay, fine. Like I said, I'm not lucky enough to let my days take shape and form. I'm not. I know that. So if luck is not on my side, I need to create outcomes. And you guys know I spin a lot of plates. So ignore all the rest of the crap. But this is because it's a non-negotiable. And I get overwhelmed and I'm a very forgetful individual. And if I don't lay things out like this, I actually have this might be anxiety inducing for some, but to me, this creates calm because I know what I'm going to do. I had to think about when I felt confident in my days, and it brought me back to high school, in college, where I somebody gave me a sheet of paper that said, catch this bus at this time, go to this class, here's your locker, this is the combination, don't fail. You know what I mean? And that honestly, if you go back to a time in your life where you say, when did you feel structured? When did you feel in control? And when did you feel calm moving through your day? Again, calm, air quotes. It was high school. So I built my agenda like it was high school. So this is what works for me. If you ignore all of the rest of this crap and just focus here, you're going to do just fine. Jody, did you have a question?
No, I was actually going to say kind of the same thing. So a lot of I'm looking to see the people on the call. We have some new people. We have a lot of people who have other jobs. So if we're coming from a W-2 mindset and we had a boss that told us what to do every single day when we showed up, this is your boss. If you sit down on Sunday and you put it into the calendar and it reminds you at 9 o'clock, this is what needs to be done. Think about it as that's your boss. That's your supervisor that's telling you this is your to-do list for the day. Get that done, and then everything else you can figure out what you want to do. Kind of.
Such a great point. That's exactly right. Is that when you're running your own business, you are your first hire. Okay. So when you think about that, I am my first hire. How am I setting up so that I can manage appropriately? Well, you can wing it or you can plan it. You choose. Yeah.
When are you fitting in showings? Like I see that you have them time blocked, but like what if they just randomly come up?
So that's a good question. My entire career has primarily been around being a listing agent. So for me,
Okay.
if I wasn't a listing agent and I'm also running a full coaching roster of coaching and doing all kinds of things. So, you know, you'd have to make it more flexible. So I probably wouldn't be off from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I probably would have more appointments available. My days would probably run differently. If I was more of a buyer's agent, I would probably have more white space. And if I had a showing, I would say showings or work on social media. So, and then I'd have a social media plan. You know what I'm saying? So in this time block, it's either going to be for showings or I'm going to, divert my time to something else. What I'm not going to do is nothing because I'm employed. I don't do nothing between the hours of 8 and 5, or I don't fiddle around. You stick to the plan. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
The
thank
other
you.
thing I was going to say to Erica is that if you time blocked, say 9 to 11 every day for your lead gen, which is kind of what she has there, 9 to 11 ish, um, you run your own schedule. So if your client calls and says, I really want to see this house, how about 10 a.m. on Tuesday? You could say, I'm so sorry, I'm booked at that time. How about 11:30?
Yeah, I
Exactly.
have nobody that's in the morning. Everything's usually in
I
the
know.
evening.
I'm just saying that, like if you have someone that asks for a time that you're pre-booked because you've
Yeah.
put your stuff in your calendar, you teach people how to treat you. So if you have clients, I know that we want to do as much for our clients as we possibly can, and we need to be a little flexible with their schedule as well. Like obviously, if that's the only time they can do a final walkthrough is at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, then you want to be able to do that. And then we go back to if you erase, you replace, but you're going to know that ahead of time. But you have the ability to tell people, I'm booked at that time. How about 11:30 or how about 2 o'clock?
But what I would encourage everybody to do is to try that, right? Just try an alternative time that works for your schedule versus just accommodating the first request all the time. I think there's a lot of muscles built in the industry around that notion of, you know, customer's always right type of concept, right? And let me just bend over backwards to provide a great experience and literally do that, then, not literally, but bend over backwards figuratively to where you're just rearranging your schedule in order to accommodate a request.
Got away
Right.
from
And
you.
think of it this way. I just heard this last week. Some of you are on a coaching call that, with my Matt's coach, and the concept, and it's extreme, but it does hold a lot of water. The concept is that we're one of the only, if not, one of the few, if not the only professional industry that operates in a manner where like you just don't have the schedule dictated to you as a client, right? Think of when you call your doctor or you call an accountant or whoever, right? It's I can meet at this time or this time is what they're telling you. And if you're suggesting another time, okay, yeah, no, but we can do this time, right? That back and forth that ensues. So it's not like consumers aren't used to that. They're just not used to, their agent kind of. It's not a conflict either. It's just a matter of like 10:30 doesn't work. How about no? Noon doesn't
Yeah.
work for you. How about two? How about, just keep going with that. I'd be willing to bet you find a lot of success. Plus, the consultation up front to make sure that their preferred schedule and that you're not taking on business that's, especially for dual career agents, right? If you have somebody that can only see homes 9 to 5 and you work a 9 to 5, like that's going to be a conflict. That may be
Mhm.
something that becomes a better referral opportunity than trying to go get referrals from that experience. It probably doesn't happen when there's just this continual conflict of like, well, my agent can't show me homes in the times that I want to see it, and like you probably shouldn't work with them either. Is how it's going to play out.
Yeah. And I mean, what your A buyer pipeline looks like. If I'm working with a lot of A buyers right now that are super needy, when you plan your week, you might need to plan to accommodate more showings, right? So your showing availability time blocks might have to be a little bigger because you're working with a higher volume of buyers. So I hope this was super helpful. Thank you for letting me like crash the Monday party.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Have the Google Drive link for the one pager. And if you haven't signed up for Thursday, I think the class is at 1:30. I'm doing a series on AI, specifically how to set it up. It's going to be open this, click this, move this, push this. It's going to be simple. And what it's going to allow you to do is create AI systems that do work for you. So if you're a solopreneur, this might be a really great thing. So keep an eye for Molly's newsletter because that's where the sign-in link should probably be.
Is that on Zoom and in person?
No, it's in Zoom. If it was in person, no, I can't because the please, can you say this again? No, it's going to be recorded. It's going to be a one swoop, but it is going to be a series, and I'm going to give you guys the skills to program your Claude to do work for you. So I'm going to help you set it up, and then we're going to do it once a month. I might change that to once every other week just to keep things going. But it's going to blow your mind.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Good to work.
Good
Have a
stuff,
day.
Chelsea. Thank you.